Okay, so carry on with this rig. What we're going to do is use the ribbon spine that we made in the last tutorial. So we use the same method for setting up the ribbon spines in this character rig. And if I was going to make this rig from scratch, which we are doing, I will probably start with the main spine for this character. But because some people viewing this might be quite new to the ribbon spines or quite new to rigging, I'm going to start off with and do these antennas because they're quite straight, so the spines aren't going to be that hard to set up. So we're going to do the easy spines first, and then we're going to do the more complex spines. But anything to do with rigging, it's things that are really complex if you tackle them one bit at a time. So same with the IKFK stretchy arms. If you've never done rigging before, that might be quite daunting and might be quite scary. You think, oh, I don't know how to set that up, so you might not attempt it. But by tackling it in little chunks, you can start to make these really complex rigging systems. So the same with any part of the rig, you just do it as you go along in little chunks. So to start off with, we're going to start doing these antennas first, and we'll work on the left and the right at the same time. So to start off with, what we can do is go to Create, NURBS Primitive, we want the plane. I'm just going to go to the option box, or you can use the Surface tab, and the plane is like the little square icon. And I'm going to get this to cubic because we want a cubic, a smooth surface. And just note, you can actually use polygon surfaces because polygon surfaces can have NURBS hair on it even. So N hair, or previous versions isn't N hair, it's just normal hair. But you can put hair on polygon objects. So if you really want to, you can have ribbon spines made out of polygon faces. But I recommend using NURBS surfaces because NURBS surfaces are actually more smooth, and it's going to work a lot better with lower poly. And also, when we're setting up the U and V patches, NURBS surfaces, the UVs are always set in a square. So when we're adding those hair follicles later on, they're always going to get assigned to the correct position, whereas polygons you might have to do some UV unwrapping. So I just recommend using NURBS. So with the plane, I'm going to set it to cubic. I'm going to set the U to 1 and the V to 5. And we're just going to put a width of 1 and a height of 5. And I'll just hold X to snap it to the grid. So we've got that there. And all I'm going to do is move this up into place. I'm going to go on the front view and just manually drag this into place. I'm just pressing F to frame it up. And for this, we could actually just take the press to make this T for templated, just so I can see this NURBS plane a bit better. I'm just going to scale this up, and I'm going to get it to match just at the base of this. So the base of the eye, so you can see where the eye mesh is meeting here, and right down to the base. So actually I'll probably scale this down a little bit more, because this top eye piece we're going to keep as one solid piece. We don't want much squash and stretch in the eye. We want to retain that volume for the eye. So let's get that a little bit more. So I'm matching up with this edge loop here, and this edge loop down here. I'll just go in the front view and rotate this, scale it in a bit. And scaling this doesn't matter too much because again we're just using the U, we're just using one U, so just one set of joints going down the U. And another good thing about this, the same with the IK spline tool, is if you're creating your own curve, you can manually move this about. It doesn't have to be a straight curve. So what I'm actually going to do here, so I'm pressing B, middle mouse clicking and dragging to bring up the soft select. Or if we double click on the move tool, go down to soft select and switch it on, and I can adjust the fall off radius, but holding down B will activate it, or holding down B and middle mouse click and drag you can see is adjusting that fall off. So it's just a quick way to move it into place. And I'll just match this up as best as possible. Get this into the bulk and just move these. I'll check the side view again. The side view is pretty much straight up, so I don't have to move that too much. So I'll keep that straight because it's quite straight. So we've got our NURB surface there, and all I'm going to do is hit Control D, Control G to group, and that's grouped it at the centre of the grid. And because I know this character is symmetrical, I'm just going to put a -1 in X to mirror it across, and then I'm going to go Edit, Ungroup to ungroup that. So we've got two planes on either side now. And again, I'm just going to delete the history and freeze transformations on these, and you'll get a warning down here seeing freeze transformations with negative scale will set opposite for attributes for different nodes. So all this means is if we flip an object over by adding in a minus in one of the scales, what it's going to do is it's going to flip the normals. So to check these, I'm just going to go to Display, NURBS, and Normals. So we can see here, I've flipped this over, froze transformations, but it's flipped the normals to try and preserve that. But I don't actually want that, so what I'm going to do is go to Surfaces, Edit NURBS, Reverse Surface Direction. So Edit NURBS, Reverse Surface Direction. And that's just going to flip the normals for us. And I'll select these again and just go to Display, NURBS, Normals, just to hide the normals again. So it's at this point we want to look at these two surfaces and what they represent. So like what we saw in the previous tutorial, we're going to put a joint, we're going to put a follicle and a joint in the middle of each one of these faces. So what I actually want to do is so we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what I might want to do is actually just increase these NURB surfaces. So what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to hit Control D, so I've got a duplicate here, but I'm just going to just press undo before I moved it. I'm going to add these two to the temp. And the reason I'm doing this is because at this stage I've got the NURB surfaces positioned correctly, and before I start making the end spine, before I start making the ribbon spine, I'm not too sure if 5 joints is going to be enough. So here we've got 5 faces. So later on I just want a copy of the original NURB surfaces, so if I need to I can go back and I can rebuild these surfaces with more faces with more spans. So that way I could have more joints. I could have 20 joints along here if I wanted. So that means the actual rig, I could stretch these a bit more, so I could get the eyes to wrap around things. I have a lot more flexibility. So what I'm actually going to do here is, so in there I've just added those two NURB surfaces to that temp group, just so I've got a copy that I can always go back to. So in here with the surfaces, I'm just going to go Edit NURBS, Rebuild Surfaces. And in the last tutorial we also said, if we go to Control Vertex, we've got 4 spans going down here because it's a cubic curve, cubic surface when we made it. So what I actually want to do is apply the same settings we had before. So set it to only work on the U. We're going to set the number of spans in U to 1, and we're going to set that to linear and hit apply. So now we can see the difference between these two. Is here it's just linear. You've just got one CV here, one CV there, and a linear line between them. Over here we have 4, so 3 spans between them. So we want to just get rid of them. So I've just hit apply again. So now we can see it's linear. So whilst we've got these rebuild surface options up, what we can actually do, just going to the front view, is I could rebuild the V instead. And we want to keep this to cubic, so 3. And I could change, so the original spans here we've got 5, but I could change this to 7 if I wanted. Oops, press 7 in the viewport, so we want to press 7 on the options here and just select the surface, hit apply. And we can see here now we have more spans coming across this surface, and this in turn will mean more follicles that will be applied to this surface. So we're going to have a joint in each one of these. So that'll give us a decent flexibility. So I'm actually going to go ahead and bump this up to 9 actually, for both sides. And keeping the copy in the temp, I can always go back if this doesn't work and I want to lower that down so it's not 9 joints. But for these eyes I want them to be really stretchy, and if these stretch really far, them joints are going to come further apart, so the more joints I have, the more flexibility I have over these eyes. So what we can do now is, with these, we're going to start building the end spine. So first off, what I'll do is select, I'm going to go to Dynamics, and always remember that there's End Dynamics, but for the moment End Hair is found under Dynamics. So even though Maya's using new End Hair, it's not going to be found under the End Dynamics for some reason. So we just need to go to Dynamics, and if you're using a previous version of Maya again, you can use the normal hair systems that were in them. And we're just going to go End Hair, Create Hair, and we're going to select NURBS Curves, U count to 0, V count, if we remember we set 9 when we rebuilt that surface, so I'm going to set that to 9 and just hit apply. I'm going to select the other NURBS surface and hit apply again, just so we're doing them at the same time. So in here I'm going to get rid of this hair system 1, the nucleus and the output curves. So to delete everything that was created when we made that hair system, apart from the hair system 1 follicles group. So just hit delete, and then I'm going to hold shift and press plus sign to expand all. I'm just going to select all these empty curve groups. Just going to go through and select them all, making sure I don't select any follicles because we want to keep them, and just hit delete. And I'm just going to pause the video and go ahead and start renaming these. Okay, so what I've done there, just pause the video because I know you guys don't want to see me typing names out all day. So I've just gone ahead and renamed each one of these and put them in 2 separate groups. So we've got the group FOL for follicle right antenna 01, and inside this group we have all the follicles for the right. And I've just used FOL for follicle for the prefix and right antenna 01. And I've started from naming them from the bottom, just 01, 02, 03, 04, all the way up to the top. And it's good to keep your naming conventions consistent and the way that your names work, so I always start from the body and then move the way out. So 01, I know I was going to be closest to the body, so it's going to be at the bottom. Okay, so we've got those 2 groups there now. So all I'm going to do now is go to my joint tool, and I'm going to hit on the grid and just hit X and create a joint, and I'm going to hit Control D 8 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to select all these and hit Control D again and just move them to the other side. And I'm going to do the same again. I'm just going to pause the video and rename these. Okay, so what I've done here now, once I pause the video, I've just done the same again, renamed all these joints with the specific name, so JTBN left antenna ribbon 01, put them in their own groups, so I've got a left and right group here, just so it's easy to select these groups later on, so we don't have a big long line of all the ribbon joints all together. And I've renamed these actually, so I've added ribbon to the end of these, just so that I know that it's part of the ribbon spine. So what I'm going to do now is if I expand the, so I'm going to take the right ribbon, take the right joints, and what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to parent constraint the joints to the follicles. Sorry. So we're going to make these follicles, well, make these joints follow the follicles through a parent constraint. So to do that, select the ribbon antenna 01. I'm going to select the ribbon, this right joint 01, and go to constraints and parent. And we want parent because we want the rotation and the translation as well. So I'm going to bring up the options, and for this I'm going to uncheck maintain offset and hit apply and close. And by taking off maintain offset, it's going to snap it right to that follicle. It's going to ignore where this joint is and just move it straight across. So continuing on, second, I'm just hit G to repeat the last command, which was that parent constraint. Or 3, or 3, or 4, or 4, 5, or 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, and 9. And I'll just close those two groups. You can see what we've done there is it's snapped each one of these joints, and now if we start to select these two CVs and increase the smooth select, soft select, if we move these about we can see the joints are now following along as we'd expect. And I prefer adding parent constraints again. I'm going to do it to the left hand side now. Select the driver, which is the follicle, select the driven, which is the joint, and hit G to repeat the parent constraint. And I prefer using the parent constraint than parenting them manually, because again with parent constraint we have the flexibility to switch it on and off. So for instance, if I wanted these joints to follow a different rig later on, I could do that. I've got the flexibility to switch those joints off, and also I can keep them in their separate groups, so it's a lot easier to find these when it's skinning. So I can have these follicles hidden whilst still displaying the groups, and it's for me keeping them in separate sections works a lot better because I could do a lot more with them. So what we're going to do now is just move these groups into their respected areas, and inside joints actually what I'm going to just do is go create empty group. I'm going to drag that group up into the joints, and I can put joints, rename this joints, ribbon 01. So we're going to create, because we're going to be using quite a lot of ribbon spines in this, I'm going to create a specific group for the ribbon joints. And these are still bound joints, so we still have the prefix of JTBN, because we're going to be using that name later on. We can use what's called a wildcard, so we can say to Maya, select everything with a prefix of JTBN, and that way it'll select all the joints we want to bind with, and then we can just select the skin and smooth skin. We don't have to go in, manually find them and select everything, so it's a good way of just ordering things. So that's the reason we want to still use the prefix JTBN and not use like a ribbon prefix. I'll close them. And these two ribbon joints, because we don't want these to actually move, they're moving with the mesh, so they're moving with these NURBS planes. What we're actually going to do is put these in the extra to hide. So extra nodes, extra to hide, and we're just going to drag and drop these in there. So extra to hide, and I'm just going to copy the names of these, and we're actually going to paste these because we need to rename the NURBS surface as well. And I'm going to call this rib surface for ribbon surface underscore left antenna ribbon 01, and paste that onto the other name. And we're going to be using these two surfaces. These are going to be extra to hide as well because we don't need to see them anymore, but for the moment I'm going to leave these outside of the hidden group because we want to be looking at these while skinning them to those main joints, which we're going to do in the next tutorial.